There are no other platforms in the world that have nearly as much data on companies and professionals as LinkedIn does. As a B2B marketer, you can sniper target professionals by job title, company size, demographics, and a lot more. And that's exactly why LinkedIn ads is so powerful. But the thing is, all the different targeting options can be a little overwhelming. And the wrong targeting is the number one reason why businesses don't see better results from LinkedIn ads. So in this video, I'm gonna walk through every single targeting option that LinkedIn offers and break down the best targeting strategy that we found after spending over $100 million on LinkedIn ads and working with hundreds of B2B organizations. First, we'll start by talking about strategy so that you know what to plan for as you get ready to plan out your campaigns and set up your targeting. And then we'll dive into the interface and actually walk through setting up some audiences. We'll talk through every single option that's in there so that you'll know what to expect once you get into your campaigns. If you already have campaigns running, this will probably give you several ideas of ways you can improve your current targeting so that you're even more laser targeted and cutting the fat and removing bad pieces to the targeting, which will save you a whole lot of money. All right, so let's jump in and look at that. So before you jump into LinkedIn Campaign Manager, you're probably going to want to plan out your campaigns that you're going to run. So as you're thinking about what's the strategy you're going to put in place, a lot of that comes down to the targeting that you're going to use. Now, it's very unlikely in B2B marketing that you're going to convince somebody to buy based on just one ad and just one click. So what's more effective is to use a full funnel strategy that can move somebody from being an unaware prospect all the way through learning about your product or service, understanding the problem that they're having, understanding how they can solve it, and then understanding how your product or service fits into that picture and helps them do that faster, better than they can do on their own. Again, that's probably not going to happen after one click or one ad, but it can happen over the course of several ads. Now, any good funnel starts with cold prospects. So at the very top of your funnel here is where you have your cold audiences listed. That can be using LinkedIn's built-in targeting. It can be uploading lists to LinkedIn. Maybe you have a target account list. Maybe you have an ABM list. Maybe you have an open opportunities list that you're going to upload. And that starts the targeting process. And then from there, you want to segment your personas so that you can match up the campaigns you're going to run to each persona. You know, if you think about it, a CEO is going to care about things that are very different than an HR manager is going to care about. A CEO is going to care about a lot different of things than an HR manager is going to care about versus an engineering leader. All those different personas are going to have different things that they're going to care about. It's going to be different things that's going to grab their attention. So you're going to want to create your ads tailored for each audience. That's going to give your campaigns the best chance of success. Otherwise, they might just not get read. People just scroll past ads or content they assume is not for them if it's not as targeted as it could be. Now, as you get into it, you might have a different funnel for each persona. This diagram here just illustrates how you want to segment your personas to start your funnel, and then from there the journey begins. So from there you can then retarget personas in different ways. You can retarget people based on how far through the funnel they are and how much interest they've already shown. And next, let's zoom in to see why that's important. So that previous diagram was the full funnel strategy. That's what the big picture looks like. But as we zoom in, this is what your individual campaigns are going to look like. So again, we want to start by segmenting our personas into the different ICP people that we're going to be talking to. Again, this might be engineering managers versus business executives versus HR leaders. Both the creative and the content that you're going to use for them is going to be widely different. When you segment those personas, that allows you to create separate campaigns for each persona and then match up your ads and content directly with that person. So that you can match up ad 1 with persona 1 and ad 2 with persona 2. And then taking that a step further, you can further retarget persona 1 with retargeting ad 1. And then you can retarget persona 2 with retargeting ad 2. This is how you can take multiple users through a journey through the buying process. Now, as you get into your planning process, first it's going to start with research. Now, you probably have a pretty good idea of who your ICP is, but either way, it's good to start by reviewing who are your current customers, who are your best customers, and then where are your deals coming from? And then investigating those to see who are the point people in those deals, who's typically your champion, who else is involved in the buying process. And then once you know that, it's great if you have some tangible companies and people to review, because then you can hop into LinkedIn, review their profiles, and really get a feel for what these people are like. I often find as a marketer, reviewing the actual companies and actual people allows me to sit down and actually write ads and content directly for that person. Otherwise, without those, I'm kind of just writing it more to a broader audience and it's not as personalized. But when you can think about that person and hold them in your head while you're writing your content and writing your ads are going to just be that much more powerful. All right, now let's jump in and just look at a couple examples to see that walkthrough. So first, we'll go over to our Speedwork page here. Very common, people are going to review companies for the industries that they're in. Very often, you probably have some good ideas of like, what are the industries that you want to target? But one thing to note is that company pages that are created on LinkedIn, whoever is creating that page is selecting the industry that company is in. This is not necessarily the official industry that this company is in. It's whatever that user selects, and they can select any industry. So this isn't necessarily 100% accurate or matching up to what that company's listed in any kind of tax documentation. You know, if you were to look up like business directories, they would probably have their own categorizations. And then there's lots of different taxonomies out there. NAICS codes is a very common one, and that is a very extensive directory. LinkedIn's directory, there's about 400 different industries that are available on LinkedIn. So it's not going to match up one-to-one with these other directories. Yeah, it's not going to match up one-to-one, and they're not going to have the same industries. Some of those other directories are very extensive. LinkedIn's is pretty good, but again, just to mention that it's not exhaustive, and the user that's setting up the page is selecting the industry, so it's not always going to match 100% with another directory that's out there. Coming back around, that's all to say the best way to figure this out is to go to the actual company pages and identify what are the industries that that company is in. So as I look at our Speedwork page here, I can see that we are in advertising services. That's the industry that we put ourselves in because we offer advertising services. But coming to the page and then see what is the industry that is listed on their company page, that's how you're going to go do the research. Say I jump over to IBM over here and I want to look at their industry. IBM is in IT services and IT consulting. Again, I can see that because it's on the company page. So I might go through 5, 10 or more company pages just to get a feel for like what are the trends that are out there. And then that'll give me some data as I go to create my audiences in the future. Other things you can look at is if you go to the About tab here for IBM or any company page, you can see a little bit more in detail. Things like industry, you can see company size, and it'll both have the number employee size bracket that this company has selected. Again, both industry and company size is input by the user who's setting up this company page. Again, not necessarily 100% accurate to what another directory is going to list, and that is also separate from the number of associated members on LinkedIn. So again, a user could come into IBM's page and change it to 50 to 200 employees. This is just input by the user on the page. So again, this might not match 100% to how many actual employees the company has. Another thing we'll dive into is looking at revenue numbers that LinkedIn will now let us target by revenue numbers. I'll call out that LinkedIn company pages don't report on revenue, but if you jump into Sales Navigator has the revenue ranges listed there, and that's going to match up to LinkedIn's industry targeting. So you can see here, of course, IBM's a huge company. They're in the top bracket, which is just 1 billion and up. Below this, there's like 500 to a billion, and then like 100 million to 500 million. So there's different brackets below this, but this is where you can come in to see what bracket is this company in. So if ever you're reviewing maybe leads or your campaign demographics as your campaign runs, if you open the company page in Sales Navigator, that's where you can see the revenue numbers. All right, so that's company pages. Let's jump over to looking at individual profiles. So also good is to get some people, maybe past leads or existing customers. Who are those champions in your sales process for your most recent deals? Go investigate their profiles, see what their actual job title is inside of LinkedIn, see what skills they list on their profile, and see what groups that they're a part of on LinkedIn. Those are all great things to know as you go to set up your targeting. And then one thing I'll mention is what you see here below someone's name is their headline on LinkedIn. This very often matches their job title, but not always. So calling out that this section here is not their job title, it's their headline. By default, the first time they update their job title, that's what the headline will be set to. A lot of people do change these. So I'm just mentioning that this is not someone's job title, this is their headline. You'll have to scroll down to their experience section here. This is what is getting pulled in the targeting. Headlines are not used in targeting, but if you scroll down to the job titles, this is what is used in the targeting. So you can see here, his headline is Technology Business Executive and Strategist, but his actual job title is Director, Analyst Relations and Strategy, IBM Technology. Just a small but important nuance to LinkedIn's targeting here. All right, so what are the most common mistakes that I see people make? Most commonly is people are creating way too large of audiences and putting way too many different types of job titles or industries into one campaign and hoping that it's going to perform well. I see a lot of people who copy paste a strategy from, say, Facebook targeting, and whenever you're setting up Facebook campaigns, often you're relying on the algorithm to go find the best person, so you want to give it a huge audience. But on LinkedIn, you usually want to be very specific on who that person you're targeting. You don't want to rely on the algorithm. LinkedIn can be an expensive platform, so you don't want to waste your money on untargeted people who aren't really who you want to be reaching. It's very common to be putting way too many people in your audience, making it way too large of an audience, and then combining multiple personas into one. And then suddenly you kind of have this audience at that point that's just, it's a big mashup. There's no real distinction on what defines this audience, and that makes it very hard to create high performing ads because you're trying to talk to everybody, and that means you're talking to nobody. And then lastly, I often see people targeting too high up. Some people are like, oh, I just want to go after Fortune 500 CEOs. And it's like, well, there's only about 500 of them out there. So be careful in your targeting. Very often you want to have a few different personas and you want to be able to split test those. So maybe you go after the person who's most likely to be the champion. Maybe you then include the person who's most likely to be the signer at the company. And you might have multiple personas. Do segment them and do split test the different personas. Now, what this all gets to for targeting is that you want to have laser targeting so that you can create very specific ads for your target audience. The more focused your targeting is, the more targeted your ads can get. Because if you think about it, you're buying ad space. So every impression you purchase, every click you purchase is something that you've paid for. So the more you can maximize the conversion rate of that space that you're buying, the better your ads are going to perform. And you're going to do that by matching up and laser targeting your ads to your audience. Here's a couple examples here of what that can look like. So now on the left here, if I'm creating campaigns in the travel industry, this is a picture of a traveler here. So that's what's going to be most likely to grab the attention and speak to somebody in the travel business. On the right-hand side, this is targeting CPAs and accounting firms. So if I was a CPA on LinkedIn and I see an ad that's calling out CPAs and accounting firms, I'm probably going to stop. I'm going to be more likely to stop on that ad and read the rest of it. And again, this allows you both on the creative side, on the visual, use visuals that align and mirror the people that you're targeting. And then also in the copy, call out your audience so that they know it's for them. People see a lot of ads and a lot of content in their feed and they assume most of it's not meant for them. So the more clearly you can call them out, the more that's going to stop them in their tracks and get them to click and read and then convert. All right, next let's jump into the LinkedIn interface and walk through all the different targeting options. Now, I've spent over 100 million on LinkedIn ads. I've gone through every single one of these targeting options and I've used every single one of them. So I can tell you the different tips and tricks, when you want to use each ones, and then which ones you really want to use and which ones you want to avoid. Because while most of them are pretty self-explanatory, a lot of them don't operate in the way that you think that they might. I've done extensive testing on all the different targeting options. We're going to walk through what works best and what doesn't. All right, so I'm just creating a test campaign here. Let's jump over to the campaign setup page. I'm just going to select default objective so I can jump down into the audience targeting section here. Now, as I scroll down, the first section I reach is location. So of course, this is the physical location that the user is in. It's important to say that again, this is the location that the user is in. So while they may work for a company that's international or in a different location, this location is where the actual user is. So if I click edit, now I can search and add locations here. So by default, it selects the United States for myself. If I add Canada here, I can see I can search and then I can select and add items to this location. And then also I'll talk about the location setting here. So by default, it's recent or permanent location. Most often I recommend switching this to permanent location because I very commonly see recent includes a lot of people who you don't often intend to include. Usually you're targeting a specific country or a specific state and you want to make sure you're getting people who live and work there. When you do recent, you'll pull in business travelers. This is anybody who has shown up and their IP address has shown up in this location in the last 90 days. Now, very often I do see this brings in lower quality traffic, and my hunch is also that people who VPN into a different computer can then include them in this target location. So you have a lot of people that will VPN into the United States, but who really live and work abroad. That can then include a lot of mismatched people in your audience. So most of the time, I'm going to recommend starting with permanent location to make sure that you're reaching the right people who live and work there. Sometimes on retargeting campaigns, I'll loosen this up because, hey, if somebody had visited our website, then I'm more open to them being included in the audience. Now, of course, now you have your positive targeting locations, so you can target the locations that you want to target, and then you have an exclude option here. So maybe I wanted to target all of US and Canada, but maybe there was like 1 or 2 states I wanted to exclude. I could then use this here. So if I wanted to take out New York, I could exclude New York. And now a couple more things to mention is in LinkedIn targeting in the US, you can target by the whole US, you can target by a specific state, and then you can target by cities, counties, and then DMAs. So if I want to target, I'm in Austin, Texas. If I want to target Austin, I can target Austin, Texas, the proper city, or I can target Austin, Texas metro area. And this includes the suburbs. So think about what's best for your company and then choose that option. And then I can also target counties. So I'm in Travis County here. I can select that county here. Fortunately, LinkedIn does not have zip codes. I wish they did, and I hope that's coming soon. But for right now, they don't have zip codes. You have to do it by either county, city, DMA, state, or country or region. I can do all of NAMER. I can do North America. I already have US, I already have Canada, and I can go by the specific states. Now for walkthrough purposes, I'm just gonna leave it as US and Canada here, permanent, and then let's move on. Now I have my location set. This next option is your audience has their profile language set to blank. By default, it's gonna be English where I'm based, but then you can drop this down to say, okay, I only want people who have their profile set to French, but are living in this location here. So you can limit your targeting based on the profile language that people have set. And as I'm making these changes, you can see how the audience size is changing on the left-hand side here. So profile set to English, I have 260 million people in the US and Canada. If I select it to French, I have about 3.2 million. If I select Italian, I have 170,000. So you can see how these audiences change live. All right, so let's keep moving through the targeting. So next I come down to the targeting detail section and it says, who is your target audience? I have the option to narrow. This is adding filters that is going to shrink my audience. And then I have the option to exclude, which is excluding people from my audience. Very often we're using these together. So I'm going to filter down my audience from this big pool to a smaller pool. And then I can also exclude certain facets, which I know might be showing up or are bad fits or are already prospects. I can exclude all those different components. So now if I click in here into narrow, let's narrow our audience. This begins our targeting process. I have two options to start. Number one is audiences. These are matched audiences that I'm either creating or bringing into the platform in some way. We'll walk through these in a second, but then I also have audience attributes. This is LinkedIn's first party data. This is like company, industry, job title, and stuff like that. We'll walk through both of these different options. So first is audiences. I can upload a list, so I can choose from the list that I've uploaded. LinkedIn's one of the only platforms that you can upload a company list, and you can target those specific accounts, and you can overlay other targeting like job titles at those accounts. We'll even walk through how to do that. So I can select a company list. I can also select a contact list. This would be the individuals. If I have a list of actual people, individuals I want to target, that would be a contact list. Next are lookalikes. This is actually no longer available in LinkedIn, so we're going to skip over this. What's predictive audiences are the new version of lookalikes. Predictive audience, you'll have to upload a seed list to LinkedIn. You can either do that by uploading a contact list and creating a predictive audience based off that. Retargeting list, conversion event. If you have a conversion event for form submission or page views, you can use that conversion event to create a predictive audience. And then finally, lead form submissions. So you could have lead form opens, lead form submissions, and then create your predictive audience based off that. Both conversion and lead form are nice because if you have people who are converting off a form or something like that in your website, you often want to find more people who are like them. And this option lets you do that. And then next section here, we have retargeting. We often use a lot of retargeting audiences. Let's go through the categories here. The first is company page retargeting. So I can retarget based on visitors to my company page. And I can do both people who have visited my company page and then people who have clicked a call to action button on there, like visit website or follow or something like that. So I can retarget people who have visited my company page. Next is Conversions API. This is actually very new. So Conversions API is how you can push data into LinkedIn from another platform, such as like your CRM system or another platform like that. But Conversions API, you might be pushing in data like qualified lead. You might push in data for open opportunity, closed won deal, different signals like that. And then if you're spending a lot of money on LinkedIn and then you're pushing back signals for which are the qualified leads, often you might want to come back and filter your audiences by those qualified leads so that you're going to, not retarget everybody, but just retarget the qualified folks. So you can do that with Conversions API. Next here is document. So document is the ad format where you're going to upload a PDF or a slide deck into LinkedIn. It's going to live in the post. People can swipe through it. So you can retarget people who have engaged with your document post. And you can do both any interaction, which is any swipe on your document ad, people who perform chargeable clicks on your ad. So usually that's like clicking the learn more button or opening a lead form or clicking on a link to go to a website. And then you can retarget people who have downloaded the document. Next are events. So if you're hosting events on LinkedIn, you can retarget people who have RSVP'd or attended or watched a certain percentage of your event. So it's very interesting to see these new options. I think this is great because events and webinars are so big in B2B marketing. Now there's retargeting audiences based off this. So prior, it was very hard to retarget people based on their engagement with your webinar. I love that LinkedIn has this built-in version now. So you have the options, people who've marked themselves as attending, people who have viewed at least 2 seconds of your event ad. And this is, while your event's running, your event can be live streaming through an ad. So you can retarget people who viewed a few seconds of that. Again, that's just like a little bit of taste that you could then retarget them to like bring them back to your event. Next is people who watched 25%, 50%, 75%, and then 97%, any interactions with the event ad, and then perform chargeable clicks. Lots of options here, but I just love how we can now break it down into people who have RSVP'd, people that attended and watched a little bit, and then have those that you could retarget those people based off that. All right, next are lead gen forms. So if you're using any kind of lead generation on LinkedIn, using the form on LinkedIn to capture leads, you can retarget based on both people who have opened your lead form, which includes people who've submitted it. You can also retarget based on people who have submitted your lead form. So of course, usually you want to exclude people who've already submitted your form so that you're not retargeting them with the same ad after they've already submitted it. And then again, maybe you have people who've clicked to open your form, but they didn't submit, and you want to retarget them because they've shown some interest. Maybe they just need to see the ad a couple more times or see another similar ad ad to get them to convert. Next here is single image. So single image are your standard image ads. So I can retarget based on any interaction and then just chargeable clicks. So again, people who are clicking on my ads, I can retarget them based off that. Scroll down further, we have video ads. So I can retarget based on views. So I can retarget based on how much of the video ad they've watched. Maybe they've watched 25% and I want to get them to watch the rest of the video. Maybe they've watched the full video and then I'm ready to retarget them with the next step, maybe a demo ad after that. And then finally, other, if you work with a LinkedIn rep, they can often drop custom segments into your account, and then that's where something like this would show up. All right, and one other tip for you is if you are using predictive audiences, I do recommend combining this with LinkedIn built-in targeting, because predictive audiences are very similar to lookalikes, and then in B2B marketing, we want to be very specific typically on who we're targeting. So if I use a lookalike or a predictive audience, then LinkedIn is making a few hops from that initial targeting that I had set. So I often want to still give it guardrails of, okay, if I'm going to use a lookalike or predictive audience, I still want to make sure they're at this size company, this seniority, so that they're at least close to my ICP. All right, next are audience attributes. So I'm going to jump over here. This is LinkedIn's built-in targeting based off first-party data that's in the platform. First, I have the company section here I can click into, and we have several different options. So company connections is first degree of connections of employees at companies you select. So if I type in IBM here and I select IBM, this will then pull in the targeting of first degree connections of people who work at IBM. This is a very interesting category, but we don't use it very often because, people at a company can be connected to a whole lot of people. People are connecting with their past colleagues, they have connections with past work friends. So you definitely could take this and then overlay your ICP criteria on it if you were selling to people that were using IBM products, or you might do this for another integration that you work with or that you have. So you could do this in this way, but honestly, we don't do it too often because people do connect with a lot of people. So it's not necessarily a great sales signal. If you're trying to sell a very specific integration or something like that, this could be a good place to start. Jumping back into company, I have company follower of, it's only going to give me my company pages option here. So whatever company page that you have admin access to would show up here, or whatever company page is tied to this ad account, that's the option that you can choose. So you can't target followers of other company pages built into LinkedIn. You have to do a third-party way to do that, but you can retarget current followers, or you could exclude current followers of your company using this. Next is company growth rate. So this is based off headcount growth. So based on the number of employees on LinkedIn, this you can target based on company growth or company shrinkage. Now, there might be times where you want to target growing companies or fast-growing companies. So this would be the option to use. Maybe you want to exclude negatively growing companies. You can use these targeting options here. They do filter, quite a bit when you add them. And also to consider is there have been lots of changes in the last few years. Over the last few years, we've had COVID, we've had post-COVID, we've had the economy go up and down. So we've seen lots of companies growing and shrinking a lot. So this may or may not be a good option for you. Again, jumping back up, now I have industries. So this is probably one of the most common ones that we're going to use. What is the industry that company is in that I want to target? In here, I have lots of options, and it's important to note that this is a tree hierarchy. So if I scroll down to, say, technology, information, and media, that's a big umbrella industry. If I click into that, I have media and telecom. I have tech, information, and internet. If I click into that, I have a lot more options here. Data, infrastructure, analytics. I can even click into that to see blockchain services, business intelligence platforms. So there's lots of industries to choose from. You probably have a pretty good idea of the industry you want to target. So look through here. You can search. The search feature is very helpful to find the industry that you're looking for and see what industries are available. It's also helpful to see the industry hierarchy. LinkedIn doesn't publish a great hierarchy anywhere, but I've created our own. So I'll share this link with you. But this is a nice way to be able to see the hierarchy of what are the top level industries and what do all those industries include. So now again, if I come down here and say I'm going to look at financial services, for example, financial services is the top level industry, and then capital markets is a sub industry inside of financial services. So if I target financial services, I will also be targeting capital markets, and then I can use this spreadsheet to see what is the hierarchy and how do all these industries relate to each other, because there's a lot to look through. There's over 400 industries on LinkedIn. It's also important to note a lot of companies are by default in the top level industry, where sometimes maybe they would be a better fit for a sub industry. Again, it's all dependent on the user that was setting up or is managing that page, what industry that they selected on that page. So sometimes you might find a great sub industry and you want to, you're like, oh, this is the exact one we want to target. While you might run a campaign specifically targeting that industry to make sure you're focused on it, you might also find you have a lot of companies that that really are a fit, but they do put themselves in the top level industry. Just something to be aware of as you're planning out your campaigns and running your campaign. Also, maybe you are targeting a top level industry, but maybe there's one or two industries in here that you want to make sure you're excluding. You can also do that as well. You can target the top level industry and exclude a specific sub industry. Next, you can target by company names. This is where you can type in the exact company you want to target. So you can manually create your ABM campaigns this way, or maybe you have just a series of companies that you want to target. You can type those exact ones in this. So I'm just going to pick a couple of the big name companies just to add in here. You can search for Microsoft, Google, and then you can see it's going to pull in lots of options for you. It's going to tell you the industry that they're in and the company size. It is important to note, be careful of the company you're selecting, because while you might search for a company, there can be lots of different options, which may or may not be the company that you want to actually be targeting. And then there's also this option here where you can target by people who are currently working there. That's the default. Maybe you want people who used to work there. Sometimes that's good for recruiting campaigns, or you can also do current or past. And you can see how that changes the target audience size on the right. Okay, let's keep moving through this list. So next I have is company revenue. It's important to note, company revenue, if it's a publicly traded company, LinkedIn has that data, knows that data because it's public. For smaller companies, it might not have that data perfect for small companies. And that's where LinkedIn's going to do some modeling. It's using third-party data sources to try to figure this out. But it's important to know it might not be 100% perfect. So as you're selecting these revenue ranges, they are more accurate for the bigger companies because those are more published data. As you get to smaller companies, maybe headcount might be a better option, or maybe you want to use revenue and headcount to make sure you're not missing anybody. But revenue is, of course, the revenue of the company. And again, like we showed earlier, if you ever want to investigate a specific company, you can open their page in Sales Navigator. You got to have Sales Navigator, but you can open their page in Sales Navigator to research what their company revenue is listed at. Okay. And then final one here is company size. This is headcount. So company size by number of employees. So you can choose from the different options here. Myself Only is a 1-person company, 2 to 10, 11 to 50, and 51 to 200. Okay. So those are all the company level targeting options. Next is demographics. And the two options here is number one, member age. So I can click into here and then I can choose from different age ranges to target by. It's very important to note that LinkedIn doesn't have the actual age of each person on LinkedIn. This is an estimated value based on the person's graduation year that's listed on their education section. Even further, a lot of people don't list the graduation year, especially as people get older in their career, they often take that off. Some people don't complete that whole section, and then a lot of older people will remove that, which then if you use a member age targeting option and someone's removed the graduation year, this will exclude them entirely. So, very often I see companies who are like, oh, we want to go after, those mid-age professionals, but those are the people that have removed the graduation year from their profile, and then they've excluded all the good people from their targeting. And they've excluded a large percentage of the good people from their targeting by using that. So on the flip side, if you do use member age, I do recommend to split test it, or to add in years of experience. We'll get to this in a second, but you can add in years of experience. So, maybe I want to go after people 35 to 54. If you're 35, you're probably at least 10 years out of college. So maybe I would do an or here to say, okay, you're 35 to 54, or you have 10 years of experience, to make sure that I'm not excluding a lot of good people from my targeting. Other demographic here is gender. So I click on this, and of course I can target by male or female. Again, it's important to note that this is an estimation. LinkedIn scans everyone's first name on LinkedIn and then estimates if you are a male or female. Very often this is wrong for gender neutral names like Morgan or Kyle or names like that. So again, there's nowhere on your LinkedIn profile that anyone sets what their gender is or their age is. These are both estimated items based on LinkedIn scanning your profile. So if you're using these, just be aware you might have some not-a-fits included in that audience. All right, next is education. So of course, as people are listing their education, what school they went to, what degree they got, you can target by those options here inside of LinkedIn. I'd say we use these sometimes, but a lot of times in people's professional career, they switch careers. So while somebody might have studied finance in school, maybe they later moved into marketing or another function. So we do see that happens very often for education. So because of that, we don't use education terribly often, but you can do by degree, field of study, and then member schools. More common, I see people wanting to target alumni of a certain school, maybe the degree that they've earned if you're going to be promoting a grad program after that. All right, next is job experience. So lots of options here for the different jobs that somebody's holding on LinkedIn. So as I look at job function, this is the preset list of the broader umbrella of a job function. So I have things like accounting, administrative, business development, education, engineering, finance. So again, these are the broader umbrellas of job titles. So I can select one of these to get to the whole finance function or whole engineering function. And as I had mentioned, business development is kind of LinkedIn's catch-all category. If somebody has a generic CEO title or president title, there's no no other like management category. So business development is where a lot of those job titles fall into. All right, so you can look through this list to see all the different options here, but you have marketing, IT, legal, operations. And then if I jump back up, now next I have seniorities. So if I do use job functions, very often it's going to be combined with seniority. As I choose, it's either going to be job titles I'm going to use, or usually I'm going to be using a combination of both function and seniority. So next into the seniority list here, you can see I have unpaid, training, entry, senior, manager. Then I have the director, VP, CXO, partner level, and owner level titles. A few interesting things to call out here is a lot of people actually end up in the entry level bucket if they have just a basic title. Some people just might be engineer. They might just list engineer. That would be an entry level title because it's just a basic title. If that person has worked there for more than 4 years, then they will be a senior, or they can write senior engineer in their title to be then a senior engineer. They can also be like lead engineer or something like that to then end up in the senior category, but very often just base job titles are going to land in the entry level bucket. A lot of people are surprised by that. A lot of people are surprised by that. A lot of people just want to target, execs it up. They're missing out on a lot of those specific people. And then as I had mentioned, senior can be either they list senior engineer, or they could be lead engineer or something like that, or they could be in that role for more than 4 years. Other ones to mention is partner down here. So while this can be managing partner at a firm, this can also be like board member or chairperson. Very often you'll get people who are at the board level falling into the partner category. And then lastly is this distinction between CXO, which is the C-suite. So CFO, CEO would fall in here, and those are different than owner. Lots of people list owner as their title on LinkedIn, and that is different than a CEO. So CEO and owner are two different titles. It's definitely possible for people to type in both of those into one job title. They might say owner and CEO, and then they're going to fall into both of these categories. And now if I go into job titles here, now I am going to search for the job titles I want to target. And again, I'm trying to target the very specific job title that I want to go after, so I can search, and then I'm going to see the options that LinkedIn's going to give me as I search. So if I say director of strategy, because we're just looking at a profile like that, I can select director of market strategy or associate director of strategy. You can see it's not going to give you the exhaustive list of every title, and you can't put by keyword. You have to search for a job title and then select the options that it's going to give you. So as you think about a job title, you can split a job title into both the seniority that's built into that job title and then the function that's built into that job title. But he's a director level here, and then analyst relations and strategy, that's likely under the business executive. That's under the business development function on LinkedIn. And then if I look at his old job title here, software QA engineer, that job title would of course fall under the engineering function. And then that would be entry, maybe senior because he was there for 4 years, but senior or entry level seniority, and then engineering function. So that's just an example of how job function and job seniority are kind of built into each title. So if I jump back over to this, if I know the very specific job titles I want to go after and I want to be very laser focused with it, I can choose specific job titles. Sometimes I'm not sure the exact job title, or maybe I know people can have several different job titles, and I do want to consolidate a few more of those into this persona or into this campaign. Then I might choose job functions, job seniority, or maybe just that specific job title I want to target isn't showing up in this list here, then I need to switch over to job function, job seniority. All right, let's jump back over to the rest of the categories here. So member skills, these are the skills that either someone's going to list on their own profile or somebody else is going to endorse them for. So if I go over to Marvin's profile here and scroll down, I can see if he has any skills. I can see a couple here. So I see team performance, I see communication, and I can click in here to see all the skills. So I can use any of these to narrow down my targeting. So Marvin would be targeted if I added team performance or communication or thought leadership. As you can see here, some of these can be kind of broad, whereas Marvin is a tech executive. Maybe I'd kind of be surprised he had coaching here. Maybe if I was targeting a coaching skill, I wouldn't have expected to find Marvin, but I do see there's like enterprise software. I see product strategy, cloud computing. Those ones I look very spot on for Marvin, for a tech executive. But keep in mind, people can have some very broad skills, and it's both the ones that they're adding and then others that are endorsing them for. All right, then last here under job experience is back to that years of experience. So how many years of active job experience does someone have listed in their profile? Very common, you're going to be selecting higher levels of years of experience here to make sure you're going after upper level people. Do keep in mind if someone's listing high school jobs in their profile, that will also count towards years of experience. All right, and then the last section here is interests and traits. So groups, what groups has somebody joined? You can target by specific groups that someone has joined. This is a great way to get very targeted. Joining a group is an indication of interest. They're looking to learn about a specific topic. Maybe they're looking to connect with other people in a specific area, but do also keep in mind lots of people join groups to sell to those groups. So that can also be another factor involved. So I can target by LinkedIn marketers. I can target by IBM, and there's lots of different groups here. You can see it's going to give you like the first 10 options or so. A tip is that you can also then type in, maybe A, and then I can go through the whole A list of all the different A options. I can go through the B list of all the B options. So while it's only going to give you the first 10, you can start typing in other words and then filter your list even further that way to find other options that you're not going to see in the first 10. Next is interests. So LinkedIn has been rolling out more interests as the platform has evolved, and I think these are great. General interests are what kind of content is somebody engaging with on LinkedIn. So if they're engaging with business content or posting business content, they can fall under this. Interests are a little bit more broad and generic. If I have a very big audience and I'm just looking for another way to get a little bit more specific, maybe I'm going to use interests at that point. But the more interesting ones are product and service interests. So these are administrative support software, business strategy software, computing software, and then service interests are things like architectural services, application software development interests, IT services. And the way that these are analyzed is LinkedIn knows the different categories that certain pages are in. So if someone's visiting a lot of pages from companies in IT services, that's an indicator that they're interested in those services. Maybe somebody reaches out to the page or messages the page. That's another indication of interest for the service. So again, these are good ways to get even more narrow. Some of these are pretty small, so just be mindful of that if you're adding in a service. So just be mindful of that. Some of the general ones do tend to be very large, and you might only want to use these when you're just looking for just something to get a little bit more targeted on. But then product and services interests do tend to be very small, so if you do use these, you might have a very small audience if you do use them. So you might need to find other ways to slice and dice your audience to get enough people. All right, other important thing to mention here is you can see as I've been kind of just playing around with these facets here, I have ORs listed here. So as LinkedIn's looking at this targeting, it's coming down and saying, okay, we're going to filter to only people in US and Canada, and then we're going to filter into people of member age 35 to 54, or job function, finance engineering, or part of a member group. So as I do these ORs are making it bigger. If I just had 35 to 54, it would limit to those people, but because I'm doing an OR, they're either 35 to 54 or they're in a finance function. So they could be in the finance function and be 24, or they could be in engineering and be 65. So ORs are making my audience larger. I do see very common people mess up their targeting with the ands and ORs. So be cognizant of the way that these are laying out, and if it's making your audience bigger or smaller, or if it's making your audience more targeted or less targeted. So very often we're going to layer in a few of these things to get more targeted. So let's do an example together. Say I want to go after engineering leaders at fintech companies. Let's go about building that audience. I'm going to start by removing all these, and let's start with the fintech company side of things. I want to start with financial services. I know that financial services is a pretty broad category. I'm going to have both fintech and non-fintech. I'll have traditional finance in that. And then for fintech, I want engineering leaders at these companies. Maybe I'm selling a very specific piece of software that fintech companies would use. So next, I want to go into engineering, and then I'm going to narrow further to go into engineering leaders. So maybe I want managers, directors, VPs, maybe CXOs too high up. And you can see how this audience size has been shrinking as I've been adding in ands, because it's getting more narrow and more targeted the more I add. And now, again, I have engineering people at financial services companies. This might not necessarily be fintech, so I want to add in other skills to get even closer to that right type of person. To do that, I'm going to think of a few skills that people could have. Maybe fintech itself is a skill. You can see now we're down to pretty small. I do like how LinkedIn suggests other similar skills based on whatever I'm typing in here. Financial technology is another good one to add. In the fintech space, maybe I'm working with crypto, so I can type in crypto or Bitcoin and choose those. So now I'm getting pretty narrow with it. I have 11,000 people, and now I found a couple fintech skills, financial technology, but I can also do product development. So now I'm putting together a list of similar skills that are going to get me as close as possible to fintech companies. Now my audience is quite a bit larger, and then I can also add, maybe I found the skills I want to find, and then maybe there's some groups out there that can also match what I'm looking for. So say I'm looking for fintech still. Okay, there's a couple fintech groups that maybe I add these, and see now you can see how I'm adding ORs here. So I want somebody to work in financial services, engineering leader, and then also has a skill around fintech to get as close as possible to fintech companies and fintech workers. All right, cool. So we have a pretty well-defined audience here. Another thing to mention is as I'm putting these together, LinkedIn has a nice little drop down here on the right side to show me segment breakdown. So by default, it's function. I can see 100% are in engineering, and that makes sense because I have the engineering function selected. Do you know these can add up to over 100% because people can fall into multiple functions? As I showed you on the IBM example, a job title can fall into multiple functions options. So that's why these are adding up to more than 100. I can also look at this by seniority, years of experience, company size, and industry. So I haven't selected a company size on the left. So if I click that, I can see that most of them are falling into very big companies, the 10,000 and up, while only 14% are from 1,000 to 5,000 employees. Also important to mention is this enable audience expansion checkbox here. Almost all the time, I recommend turning this checkbox off, because if you're spending a lot of time, getting very specific on who you want to target, if audience expansion is on, that then allows LinkedIn to go make a couple hops from all these options you've selected above, and then suddenly, after it's made a couple hops, you're quite a bit farther from the ICP that you're meaning to target. So pretty much always recommend turning enable audience expansion off. And then also you have the option to exclude audiences. So just like I selected all these categories above, I can exclude most of these categories. So say I'm targeting all these different company sizes here, but maybe I want to make sure I'm excluding just like the very small ones, because those are going to be too small of deals for me. So if I go company size and then say I want to exclude anything below 200, I can then do that. And you can see how my audience is getting smaller because I'm excluding and I'm taking people out of that audience. All right, and last couple things to mention is once you've done all this, you can save your audience, and then you can then choose that audience later, or if you need to go apply it to another campaign, and then you can view your saved audiences back up here at the top where it says saved audiences. You can click on that to choose the different audiences you've already saved. Now there's one gotcha when it comes to LinkedIn targeting. It's that people can have multiple roles listed on their profile, and it's possible for different facets of different roles to match the targeting that you're using. This is one example I was just looking into this week. If I look at this profile here, somebody is a case analyst at Texas Board of Nursing, and they're owner of their own little side boutique company over here. But when you combine these targetings together, LinkedIn can see this profile as the owner of a large healthcare company. And that's because they think about the targeting that you're going to be setting up of owner in healthcare at a large company. As LinkedIn scans this profile, this person is an owner because this job title matches. But then if industry targeting can match this company and the company size can match this company, so this person could match owner of a large healthcare organization. So that's an important gotcha for LinkedIn targeting. People can have multiple active roles, and it's very common. So this is where and why you want to use exclusions pretty heavily. Once you're targeting that specific person you want to target, exclude the opposite facets so that you're reducing the chance of this happening. Now again, what that might look like in targeting, if I'm jumping back to my engineering leader at FinTech example, I can then come down here, and like I was excluding the small company sizes, I might also want to exclude lower level seniorities, unpaid, training, entry, senior. Again, to exclude the chance that somebody has two jobs in their profile, I want to exclude those opposite facets. What are a couple other common exclusions to be making? I like to exclude retired. You can also exclude people who are applying to jobs, because that person, if you're running a sales campaign, that person is likely looking to get another job, so not a great sales campaign to be running. All right, so we covered a lot today as far as LinkedIn targeting goes. And remember, it comes back to the more exact you can set your targeting, the more exact you can create your ad creative to match up with that person. The more closely that matches, the more likely they are to click on your ad, to read your ad, and then take next steps. All right, I hope this video helped you understand how to use audience targeting effectively in your LinkedIn ads. Now, obviously targeting is only one piece of the puzzle to running profitable LinkedIn ad campaigns. So if you're a B2B founder or marketer, you use LinkedIn ads to generate sales opportunities, and you don't want to waste time trying to figure out how to do it yourself, then make sure you click the link below to schedule a call with me personally, and we can walk through your campaigns. On that call, we'll analyze your company's situation, and I'll explain how we can help you fill your sales pipeline and drive high quality sales opportunities using LinkedIn ads, just like we've done for hundreds of B2B organizations. So click on that first link in the description below and book a free call with me. I'll talk to you soon.